Welcome back to Wave 3 Listens. Dr. Eli is with us, and we're talking about marriage, family, any kind of relationship issues you may have at 571-5263. Dr. Eli, you know there's a proper way to write a thank you note. I think Miss Manners could help us with that, but I need your help. What's the proper way if you have been in a little disagreement, a little spat with your wife or your husband, and you want to say, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
You've reflected a little bit, and you go, maybe, okay, I was wrong. How do you do that?
Yeah, it's like the yin to the yang in that last segment. So you've kind of worked through your anger, and you kind of want to reset, come to the table, and engage your partner. Well, I think first thing, as we were saying, is you got to know your part in that, and you can. People can tell when you're not sincere when you're making an apology. I don't care if it's to a spouse, a family, or a friend. So you have to be really sorry about your part in it. If you're not, you really can't say that you are. So the first step, I think, is to be really sorry and kind of take stock for your part. And then you come to that person and you kind of acknowledge what you did. And then most people, you know, they can be forgiving at sometimes, but if it's a repeated pattern, if you have a spouse that keeps doing the same thing over and over, or a teenage son or daughter that is a repeat offender, then it's kind of hard to believe that sometimes. So then the person making the apology also needs to be able to offer some assurance and have some accountability that it's not going to happen again, because an apology will only go, it's words, but it's also the actions, as we say, that follow up on that. And then the equal part of that is that the person's got to be willing to forgive. I mean, lots of times people come to the table ready to apologize, but the other person is not ready to forgive. So, and that is sometimes difficult when somebody's making a sincere apology, but it's either too little, too late, or it's not the right time. So I think you have to be prepared. Also, you're doing it really to kind of to set the table, to reset, I said, but if your partner or loved one is not ready to receive it, then you're going to have to accept that they're not ready and really kind of go on. And a lot of people, when they've really messed up, they also turn their kind of hatred or their anger within and towards themselves. So the other thing is to really to not do that, which can get you really stuck and lead to other problems. So that's a really good question, how to apologize the right way.
Dr. Eli, I'm curious, and I don't mean to seem to be flippant or taking a very serious topic and being light with it, but are there trends in your industry? I'm curious about the fact that, like for instance, on the news we see that there's a substance abuse problem in our community, like there is any large city. Do you see any trends when you're handling families, maybe more substance abuse, maybe more bullying issues, things that we hear a lot about in the media? Are you seeing that when you get, you're in the trenches with these people one-on-one?
Yeah, marriage and family therapists, they're going to see all types of presenting problems, as we call it, but yeah, they cluster into certain areas. John's right. So, you know, marriage and family therapists, really, when you're talking about couples, there's three big areas: money, sex, and kind of division of household labors, followed closely by in-law disputes. So those are the kind of common threads which every kind of problem runs through. And with families, especially with teenagers and kids, we see power struggles, kind of following rules, and a lot of school issues, including bullying and cyberbullying. But a marriage and family therapist is going to be able, again, to treat you in your whole relational context. They're not just going to see you in isolation. So they're going to want to know what's going on at home, what's going on at work, and all your significant relationships with your friends. And that also means understanding your family of origin. You know, we've talked about that on the past a lot. That's our blueprint, right? So we are who we are, good and bad, for how we were raised. And sometimes if you don't have a perspective on that, and you don't understand that, yeah, you know what they say about history, if we're doomed to repeat it if we don't really kind of learn from that. And a lot of times this hardwiring that we get from our families is really influential in it. So if you've had a family of origin issue, if you want help understanding, why do I get this feedback from people all the time, you know, I'm too intense, or I can't commit, or whatever your issue is, and you've heard it enough, or you've had enough failed relationships because of it. Many people, again, individually will go to see a marriage and family therapist to look at some of these relationship patterns. A lot of times started because of the way you were raised or what your blueprint was in. So it's another good reason to come. As I was saying, you don't need to be in a relationship to see a marriage and family therapist. In fact, nationwide, marriage and family therapists, you know, about 50% of their caseload are individual clients, again, looking for some relational help, whether it be in their romantic relationships, their friendships, or their families.
Being the father of a teenager, I have to ask you, do you find social media to be a good thing? And I know this to be a fact, and I think a lot of folks would agree with this. It's never a good thing to text your wife when you're arguing,
right?
Because they can't read your body language.
Right.
You know, we've already said, hey, if we're fighting, let's just call each other or try to meet.
That's right.
Is that good advice?
Right. Texting, I mean, is a great tool. Obviously, when you're sending a quick information, like pick up this on the way home, or quick words of encouragement, but you never want to have a discussion. Something that is important. You want to break bad news or start something that could be inflammatory to lead a fight. You never want to do that via text. And again, marriage and family therapists, there's not a week that goes by that they don't deal with some type of social media related incident, whether it be the children posting something that they shouldn't have posted, or a spouse posting something, or getting a new friend on Facebook, or some connection that the other spouse is curious or jealous about. So in general, you want a kind of a plan of how you use that, both in a committed relationship as far as social media, but also in your family. It's like, and you want to model that for your kids. Can't tell you how many times that we're doing family therapy with the teenager, and the parent says, you know, put the phone down, put the screen time down, but the parent is on the phone all the time. Yeah. So you got to kind of practice what you preach a lot too. And sometimes it's another good point. It's like how you get the buy-in from everybody. If you go to a marriage and family therapist, you got to be able to look at your part, as I said, because sometimes if you think of bringing your teenager into a marriage and family therapist, which, you know, many marriage and family therapists will work with, it's like the idea of dropping my kid off, fix my kid, it doesn't work that way. A marriage and family therapist is going to look at all parts. And they're going to do it not in a confrontational, blaming way, but they're going to look at you as far as the parent, kind of see what your strengths are and also what your challenges are. And that's going to fit into the family plan. When you see a marriage and family therapist and you're working with your family or with your partner, there's both individual plans, everybody has a piece of that, what you're going to do, and then there's larger family plans. And again, the best way, if you've been watching these segments and you maybe have a stigma against mental health or counseling, and remember, marriage and family therapy is very different than a lot of these other mental health disciplines. They're not going to pathologize you. They're not going to look for weakness. Now, they're not going to ignore a mental issue if it's staring you in the face, or if you have a diagnosis, but they're going to work with you, as I said, to find strength and health. And what they're going to do is really lay it out there as you are kind of the master of your own family. You have the solution. So they're going to work with you in a collaborative way. They're not going to talk down to you. So if you've never experienced that, again, the best way to do that is many marriage and family therapists, again, if you go to that therapist locator, they're going to talk to you on the phone. They're going to give you a consultation. They're going to make it comfortable for you if you've never kind of sought help for your relationships.
All righty. We have the websites up on the screen, KAMFT.org, or there we go, right there, or Therapist Locator. The Therapist Locator, that one is a good one for you to go on and kind of check out and find a fit for you and your family. All right. Coming up, we're going to talk about pumpkins. We're going to talk about the Jack-O-Lantern Spectacular that's taking place at Iroquois Park. We'll be right back on Wave 3 Listens.